Hey everyone, welcome to another video, the Base-12 Book Club number 7. In this episode I'm going to be talking about, well, first of all, I'm going to acknowledge that someone found a mistake in the book. A little error, it's on page 106, and basically it's a labeling of points. So I'm going to let you guys figure out what the precise error is. It's not a big deal, but it does exist, and so I'm really happy that someone is looking at this book and all the different pages and the information so carefully that they found that mistake. So good on you, but it doesn't bring the whole thing crashing down. That is my intent with writing this book and getting it out there, is for people to really look and examine this geometry. And I'm extremely confident that there's no, big logical errors in the overall structure. So I'm sharing something that exists in Base 12 that doesn't exist in Base 10. And we're just looking at it and seeing what are the implications of this geometry. And so I'm inviting everybody to give me their comments, ask questions. Another note, I've got some notes here. Something else just want to mention, today's November 7th. And right now on the Amazon website, the book is not available. And I've talked to them and I'm not really sure why. They said some changes were made, but I didn't make any changes. So I'm not really sure. But it goes through a process and then it's going to be available again, I'm hoping, by the end of the day. So if you're trying to buy the book, just be patient and I'll let you know when it's up again. But right now it's unavailable. But it is available in the big picture, and I want you to buy a copy, and you can have access then to some information that is not accessible anywhere else in the world. So that's pretty interesting. This is some big stuff, and this has been my journey, is discovering this and then realizing that it is a big deal, how it's relevant. So that's what we're going over in these videos. So I'm going through the book. I've gone through chapter 1. Really, I think we've looked quite deeply into the difference between base 10 and base 12. That should be clear by now. It lies in the size of the decimal places, and the base 12 Cartesian plane has a denser grid than the base 10 Cartesian plane. And we're building our geometric pattern on the base 12 Cartesian plane. Okay, so I have a question actually in chapter 2. I'm talking about base 12 math, and I introduced the fact or the idea or the truth that you can't do this. You can't do your geometry on the base 12 Cartesian plane without committing to base 12. You have to do the math in base 12. And so this involves getting a base 12 calculator, because it's quite difficult just to do the math in your head. You can start, but it's kind of tricky. And so you don't have to get a calculator. If you're happy just to read through the book and look at everything, that's fine. You don't need a calculator to read the book, but if you want to keep exploring and going deeper and seeing if you can figure out some of these things on your own or take some of the ideas and go farther, I really recommend getting a calculator. But on the other side, I'm not sure which are good calculators. I haven't done an in-depth study. When I first started exploring base 12 math, I went on Google Play and downloaded a calculator that was then available, and it's a good one, and it gives me, I can access long numbers, like 25 digits long, and multiply and divide, subtract, add. That's about it as far as the functions, but it's nice. It's just great to be able to do the simple math in base 12. But they've discontinued their version, and the ones that are on the market now, I'm not really sure about. I've downloaded a few and then deleted them because the one I have is the best. So I'm working on creating one that I can recommend for people, but at this point I don't have any recommendations. You're a little bit on your own, but I'd love to get feedback. If anyone has found a good calculator that they're liking and they're using, I'd be happy to plug that or try it out. And until then, or until I get my own, though, I'm just recommending you do a little research, see if you can find something. Or if you're handy with creating apps, build one yourself. I'm looking for someone that can help me. I've got a few conversations going, but if there's someone out there who wants to build a base 12 calculator, I don't think it's that hard, but on the other hand, you have to know what you're doing. So base 12 calculators, looking for some feedback if anybody has anything to add. Okay, so one of the questions I got recently was, can you do this can you build this diagram for 360 degrees just using the seed of life diagram or the dodecagon? Do you have to do them together? yes, you have to do it together, obviously. That was one thing I discovered early on, is that if you ask somebody and really push, like an actual, math person or someone who really engaged in the conversation, and you're talking about 360 degrees, and you say, look, there's no diagram in base 10. You can't do it. There's no simple geometric pattern that divides the circle into 360 degrees. Often is people will say, well, yeah, I think there is. And so you got to say, okay, what is it? And they'll start with the seed of life diagram and just, show you how it goes. And then you'll sort of realize the only method that we have for dividing this further is by finding the midpoints between these angles. When you draw two circles that overlap, and then draw a line through the 2 points of where they overlap, where they connect, that's the midpoint between those 2 points. So you can always find the midpoint between 2 points by drawing circles, but that's it. You're only dividing things in half. So if you think about the circle, the original diagram starts with 24 divisions of the circle. Then if you just find half, you go to 48, and then 96, and then 196 times 2. But you're just basically doubling, and you skip over 360 degrees, and there's not a lot there really. You don't have the same ability that you get when we do the method that I've shown you in the book. So, in answer to the question, you have to do it together. It's the structure of the dodecagon that is new and really gives us access to the geometry of the circle. And it's the fact that we have the circumference, that we can use the perimeter of the dodecagon to eventually become the circumference of the circle and do that equation then it becomes a very easy long division equation, dividing the diameter into the circumference, or the perimeter that becomes the circumference, and then we get the number for pi in base 12. Okay, so now we're going to go to page 43, where I'm connecting some of the dots, and we're looking at this triangle that's formed when we draw a line from the various points that define the dodecagon. Okay, so this is what that looks like. So you can see I've labeled those lines S1, S2, S3, S4. And we've already seen in previous videos, and you've seen in the book, how those lines are in between, or sandwiched between, the 30 and 60 degree lines. For a long time, when I was first discovering this geometry, I thought those were the 30 and 60 degree lines. I just assumed it, and I didn't actually even know how to check and see it. Just made that assumption. I'm going to admit to having a very naive outlook towards math, or I just basically didn't know anything about math when I started this exploration. And in some ways, that's been a good thing, because I don't come with any preconceived ideas, and I've just been exploring. But on the other hand, it's a lot of work to learn a lot of really basic things, but I'm applying it to this geometry. And so in previous videos, I mentioned that I have a question that I'm still trying to figure out, and what it is what is the actual angle inside of this triangle that's formed here. We have this triangle that's got a base of 1, a height of 0.7. The hypotenuse turns out to be the square root of 1.41 in base 12. So we're all on base 12. We're on the base 12 Cartesian plane. And if we were trying to figure that out in base 10, we would be able to use our base 10 calculator. This is where we get into sine and cos and tan. We'd want to, we A, B, C, we do the sine, I believe, of 0.7 over 1. We put that information into our calculator, we hit a button, and it would give us theta, theta, the angle there that's formed. And this is where it gets tricky, because when we try to do this when we try to convert into base 10, that's where we get that 7/12, and then you divide 7 by 12, you get a repeating decimal, and then you use that, and everything's just a little bit off. You don't quite get that precise exact length, so you're not dealing with a precise triangle the way that we have access to it here in base 12, but I don't know all that sine, cos, tan in base 12. I have to still figure that out. I don't know the process that the calculator is going through, that it's actually doing to get that information. So that's something I'm still working on. I haven't really been able to find anybody who can explain that to me very clearly in a way that I can then convert that information into base 12 and then do the calculation in base 12, figure that angle out in base 12. So that's something that I would say, if you want to try that, you're probably going to need a calculator for it. And that's one of the things I still want to, discover is the angles here that we're working with. That's just looking deeper into the overall geometry. So I'm going to leave it there. I want to keep these videos short. That's a little bit of homework if you want to engage with this math a little bit more, finding out that angle. I'm going to give you some more homework in future videos. So we'll just keep making these videos. Looking forward to more feedback from everybody. Questions, comments, feel free, and hope to see you in the next video.